Welcome back to Superbly Said, Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
Yeah, it is brilliant to be back. I mean, we are really diving straight into the deep end today.
We absolutely are. But really quickly before we jump in, just a quick note that today's material is actually drawn from a SpeakDuo lesson.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls, just to become more confident in their speaking abilities. It's, a fantastic resource.
It really is.
Huh.
So our mission today for this deep dive is clear. There's no fluff, no filler. We're just taking your vocabulary straight to the next level with advanced English idioms.
Exactly.
And, by the end of this, you'll be fully equipped to use these native level phrases confidently in the workplace or on an IELTS exam.
Yeah, so let's just unpack this. We're going to start right in the realm of work and daily tasks because, that's where sounding professional but also really precise matters the most, right?
Absolutely.
So let's start with a phrase you'll hear when things go perfectly right, and that is spot on.
Right, spot on. And what's fascinating here is, the underlying psychology of it, because a lot of learners will just default to the word correct.
Yeah, which makes sense, but it's a bit flat, isn't it?
Exactly. Correct is purely factual. It's binary. Like a math equation is correct, the sky is blue, that is correct. But spot on implies absolute perfection in context or judgment or timing.
I sort of like to think of it in terms of like throwing darts. Saying something is correct is like just hitting the board anywhere. You scored, sure.
Right, you're on the board.
But saying something is spot on is hitting that absolute center bullseye, like that exact spot.
And that is actually the exact etymology of it, hitting the specific spot on a target. So if you're in a meeting, you wouldn't just say, your analysis is correct.
That sounds almost a bit robotic.
It does. You would say your analysis of the current market trends was spot on. It just shows you completely validate their specific nuanced insight.
Yeah, it makes the compliment feel so much more earned. And what if you're answering an IELTS Part 2 question about, say, receiving good advice?
You could say something like, my friend told me to rest before the interview, and that advice was spot on. It just immediately signals a really high level of vocabulary mastery to the examiner.
Hitting the bullseye, I love that.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, we don't always hit the bullseye. Sometimes the target is like the size of a skyscraper, and perfection isn't even the goal. You just need to survive the workload.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there.
Right. So what do we say when we are facing this monumental task?
Well, that is where the phrase make a dent in comes to the rescue. It means to reduce a noticeable portion of something large.
Okay, so if I have 100 emails and I managed to answer 10 of them, did I make a dent in them?
You did. Yeah, you made a dent. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about how often you use words like finish or complete.
A lot, usually.
Right, but make a dent in is for when the task is simply too massive to finish in one go. You haven't completed it, but you finally made visible, meaningful progress.
It feels very physical, like, I don't know, striking a massive block of solid metal with a heavy hammer. You didn't destroy the block, but you definitely left a mark.
Precisely, yeah. It's a psychological victory over procrastination. So, in the workplace, you wouldn't say, I did some of my emails. You'd say, I finally made a dent in my overdue emails.
Ah, that sounds so much more accomplished.
It does. Or in an IELTS-style response, you might say, last weekend I made a dent in my backlog by finishing 3 long reports. It communicates a sense of massive scale and, honestly, immense relief.
Yeah, I feel the relief just saying it. Okay, so you've dented the work, you've got some momentum going. Now you need to prepare for a meeting about that work. How do we talk about reviewing things without sounding like we're going back to university?
Right, you use the phrase run through. This just means to quickly review a list or a set of details.
But why not just say read or study?
It's all about the energy involved. If I say, I'm going to study the agenda, it sounds, isolating.
Yeah, like you're locking yourself in a library for hours in complete silence.
Exactly. Run through actually comes from the theater, like a rehearsal run through. It implies speed, efficiency, and often, doing it aloud or collaboratively.
Oh, that makes total sense. It's active. Like, let's run through the agenda before the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you're preparing for a presentation, you could say, I ran through my slides twice just to make sure the timing was right.
Okay, so you run through your slides, you deliver the presentation, and you absolutely crush it. What is like the ultimate compliment you can get from a British boss?
Oh, that would definitely be being told you did a cracking job, which means an excellent, impressive, outstanding piece of work.
A cracking job. This one feels so delightfully energetic, but where does cracking even come from? Are we, like, breaking something?
Historically, it relates to moving with great speed and efficiency, like the cracking of a whip. Yeah. And over time, in British slang, it just evolved to mean something spectacular or top tier. We all say, good job, right? But cracking adds this layer of energetic, enthusiastic praise. It has a real spark to it.
It really feels like a verbal high five. Imagine your boss coming up to your team and saying, you did a cracking job organizing the fundraiser last weekend.
Right. It just hits differently. It motivates you in a way that just saying good work simply doesn't.
It truly does. Now, as we transition from, managing our own tasks to how we navigate the people around us, the vocabulary shifts entirely because work is inherently competitive.
It is, yeah.
And when we talk about competition, we usually just say someone won. But there's a much sharper phrase for this, isn't there? Beat someone to it.
Yes. Beat someone to it.
Yeah.
This means to do or get something before another person manages to. And to understand why this is so useful, you have to compare it to the concept of winning.
Okay.
Winning is very broad. But beating someone to it is specifically about timing. It's about preempting someone else's planned action.
Wait, so is it just less about a formal race and more about someone stealing your thunder?
Exactly. There isn't necessarily a finish line. It's more like, think of old Western movies where two cowboys draw their weapons. It's about who acts first. It is the perfect phrase for office politics.
Ah, I see. So I could say, I wanted to host the event in the main conference room, but a colleague beat me to it by booking the venue yesterday.
Perfect example.
Uh-huh.
Or on a more personal level, maybe,
Yeah.
I was going to buy that concert ticket, but my friend beat me to it.
It's so frustrating when that happens. But what happens when you're in a fiercely competitive market and you don't necessarily beat everyone, but you don't lose either? Like, you just stand your ground.
Then you would say it held its own, meaning it maintained its quality despite strong competition.
I hear people use the word survived in this context a lot.
Right, and that's usually a mistake, because surviving sounds desperate, like it barely made it out alive and is just limping across the finish line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Holding its own actually comes from boxing or wrestling. It means standing firm in the ring against a heavyweight opponent. It means it remained genuinely strong and competitive on its own merits.
That paints such a clear picture. So in a business context, you could say, even with massive new chain cafes opening up nearby, the little local bakery held its own with loyal customers. It didn't just survive, it stood its ground.
Precisely. And it's fantastic for IELTS, too. Like if you were talking about a favorite older possession, you can say, my old camera held its own against newer models, so I kept using it for years.
I love that. But, all this competition, all the stand your ground, it sounds exhausting.
It is.
Sometimes you just want to try something without the pressure of having to hold your own.
And for that exact feeling, we use the phrase, give it a go, meaning to attempt something new, especially for the first time.
But why not just say, do it or try it?
Because give it a go is actually an incredibly powerful psychological tool. It implies a complete lack of pressure.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it frames the action as a totally low-stakes experiment. If you fail, well, it doesn't matter, because you were just giving it a go.
That instantly takes the stress out of it. So for IELTS, speaking about trying new hobbies, instead of saying, I want to do rock climbing, which sounds like I plan to become a professional, I say, I decided to give rock climbing a go.
Exactly. Or, I'd like to give paddleboarding a go next weekend.
It just sounds wonderfully natural, conversational, and adventurous.
It really does.
All right, let's step completely out of the competitive workplace and into everyday social situations. Let's talk about the absolute trap of the dinner table.
Uh-oh.
Specifically, being a captive audience.
Oh, this is the delightfully dark little idiom.
Yeah.
It refers to people who are forced to listen. Compare a captive audience to, say, good listeners. Good listeners choose to pay attention to you because they are polite or genuinely engaged.
Train a captive audience.
A captive audience literally cannot leave the room. Historically, this term was actually used for prisoners who were forced to sit and listen to a chaplain's sermon.
Wow, so we've taken a literal prison term and applied it to family dinners.
Basically, yes.
Like telling a painfully long travel story at a holiday dinner table where the kids can't leave until they finish eating. They are a captive audience.
Exactly. They are trapped by social convention, not by choice.
If those kids sit there and endure that entire story without complaining, I feel like they deserve some serious respect. Which actually leads perfectly into our next phrase. Fair play too.
Fair play, too, is such a beautiful phrase. It goes so much deeper than a simple congratulations.
How so?
It stems from the old concepts of chivalry and sportsmanship. It's often used when acknowledging someone's true grit, especially if they overcame a barrier or proved the doubters wrong. It is a nod of grudging, deep respect.
I love that, recognizing the hustle. So, fair play to her for finishing the marathon after months of grueling training.
Yes, or fair play to my brother for completing his degree while working full-time.
It really shows you recognize the difficulty of what they achieved. Okay, let's shift gears to dining out and shopping. Imagine you are looking at a restaurant menu and your eyes start watering at the numbers.
We've all been there.
You might say it is on the pricey side, meaning somewhat more expensive than expected. I love this one because it's a prime example of British understatement.
Oh, absolutely. What linguists call litotes.
Yes, it is just so diplomatic.
It really is. Because if you bluntly say, it's expensive, it can sound like a complaint, a criticism, or even an insult to the host. On the pricey side, softens the blow perfectly.
It's the ultimate cushion. I imagine it's a great phrase for softening the blow when complaining to your boss about a software invoice. Like, the new system is definitely on the pricey side.
Keeps you sounding professional and composed.
Yeah.
Or, for IELTS shopping topics, I bought a good pair of shoes that was on the pricey side, but they lasted years. Or maybe reviewing a cafe. That place is on the pricey side, but the food is incredible.
And speaking of incredible food, what happens when you eat way too much of it? You become
Fat.
full up.
Right. Completely satisfied, unable to eat more. And this one is very specific, particularly in British English.
How is it different from just saying, I'm not hungry?
It's not just the abstract concept of not being hungry. Full up describes the literal physical sensation of being at maximum capacity right after a heavy meal. American English speakers might say stuffed, but full up has a very natural, cozy feel to it.
Yeah, like, I was full up after a massive family barbecue last weekend and couldn't even look at dessert.
Right, you had reached your absolute physical limit.
Okay, so you're full up, the sun is shining, and you don't want to go home just yet. That's when you make a day of it. Spending an entire enjoyable day doing a particular activity.
The psychology here is about deliberate commitment to leisure. The alternative is usually, let's go for a bit and see. But make a day of it means you are intentionally extending the joy of an activity.
It's brilliant for blending work and leisure. Like, since we're already traveling to the city for the morning meeting, let's make a day of it and visit the museums.
Exactly. Or we decided to make a day of it at the seaside with a picnic and a long walk.
It totally transforms a quick errand into a real event.
It does.
Now, if someone didn't want to make a day of it and they were dragged along anyway, they might resort to our final phrase before the big quiz. Moan about.
Yeah, yes. To complain repeatedly in an annoying way. And you should contrast this with words like critique or raise an issue.
Because if you critique something, it's constructive, right?
Exactly. You're trying to solve a problem. But moaning literally mimics the physical sound of a groan. It is tiresome, it is endlessly repetitive, and it's usually about something minor that the person isn't actually going to fix.
Oh, we all know coworkers who vent exactly like this. Like, he tends to moan about the slow internet every single morning.
Yes, or when I'm stressed, I tend to moan about how many emails I need to answer.
It perfectly captures that specific, unhelpful flavor of complaining.
Yeah.
Okay. You have heard the vocabulary, you understand the psychology, and you know the nuances. Now it is time to put you to the test with a superbly said interactive quiz.
I love this part.
We're going to see if you can lock in this advanced vocabulary.
Because knowledge is only valuable when you can apply it. This is where we see if you can spot the correct context out in the wild.
Here is how this works. I'm going to read a question with option A, option B, and option C. Some of these options might sound a little ridiculous, so listen closely to find the real one. I will prompt you to pause the audio if you need a moment to think. After the pause, my co-host will immediately reveal the answer and break down why. Let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Question 1. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase spot on correctly based on context?
The professional paint technician used a small brush to ensure every spot on the wall was covered.
The deeply frustrated young retail clerk aggressively managed to completely drop a white line.
Your analysis of the current market trends and potential growth areas was absolutely spot on. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is option C. Your analysis of the current market trends and potential growth areas was absolutely spot on. Remember, spot on implies absolute perfection, just like hitting the center bullseye on a dartboard with your brilliant market analysis.
Bullseye indeed. Let's move to question 2. Select the context where the phrase make a dent in is most appropriately used figuratively.
After 3 hours of focused work, I finally managed to make a dent in that mountain of pending support tickets.
The industrial vehicle maintenance crew used a massive metal hammer to make a dent in the truck door.
The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option A. After 3 hours of focused work, I finally managed to make a dent in that mountain of pending support tickets. Figuratively, make a dent in is about reducing a massive, overwhelming task, exactly like tackling that huge backlog of overdue emails we discussed earlier.
Awesome. Question 3. In which situation does someone accurately utilize the advanced phrase fair play to contextually?
The athletic tournament umpire shouted, "Fair play to," when the runner committed a foul during the match.
Fair play to her for successfully launching such a complex project despite having almost no initial budget.
The completely terrified young wilderness traveler unexpectedly noticed an exceptionally massive, heavy tool chest. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
You are definitely looking for option B here. Fair play to her for successfully launching such a complex project despite having almost no initial budget. We use fair play to show genuine, grudging respect for a gritty achievement, much like respecting someone for finishing a marathon after months of grueling training.
We are halfway there. Question 4. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase, "a cracking job," figuratively?
You did a cracking job organizing that international conference. The logistical coordination was flawless.
The specialized construction machinery operator performed a cracking job on the concrete floor during the winter freeze.
The incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly catch that white balance. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct choice is option A. You did a cracking job organizing that international conference. The logistical coordination was flawless. Using a cracking job is high-energy, enthusiastic praise, bringing back the example of the boss actively praising the team for an outstanding fundraiser.
Moving right along. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase held its own contextually?
The International Shipping Freight Organization carefully ensured the container held its own weight safely.
The completely confused amateur theater group unexpectedly decided to proudly paint a clean frame.
Even with new, aggressive competitors entering the market, our flagship software product held its own successfully. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is option C. Even with new, aggressive competitors entering the market, our flagship software product held its own successfully. Held its own means standing your ground against strong competition on your own merits, exactly like that old camera holding up against new models, or the little bakery surviving against the big chains.
Question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the meaning of the phrase, "on the pricey side," contextually?
The specialized warehouse storage technician confirmed that the pricing stickers were on the pricey side of the bin.
The new enterprise management software package is definitely on the pricey side, but the features are essential for our operations.
The incredibly clumsy hotel maintenance worker accidentally managed to completely drop that red tray. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
Option B is your answer. The new enterprise management software package is definitely on the pricey side, but the features are essential for our operations. On the pricey side is that softer, understated, diplomatic way of calling something expensive, just like describing high-quality shoes or delicious cafe food to your boss without complaining.
Almost done. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase, make a day of it, contextually?
Since we are already traveling to the city for the board meeting, we might as well make a day of it and visit the local galleries.
The logistics warehouse coordinator ensured the morning schedule was structured to make a day of it work plan.
The deeply confused young kitchen assistant accidentally managed to quickly slice a fresh piece of day. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
That would be option A. Since we are already traveling to the city for the board meeting, we might as well make a day of it and visit the local galleries. Make a day of it is all about deliberately extending an activity for maximum enjoyment, like turning a quick seaside visit into a full picnic trip.
And our final challenge, Question 8. Which of the following statements correctly uses moan about figuratively?
The professional medical throat specialist carefully monitored the patient to avoid moan about vocal distress.
He always loves to moan about the office air conditioning settings, even when the temperature is perfectly comfortable.
The completely confused amateur artist unexpectedly managed to beautifully paint a Gia. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
And the final answer is option B. He always loves to moan about the office air conditioning settings, even when the temperature is perfectly comfortable. Moan about perfectly describes that tiresome, unconstructive, repetitive complaining over minor things, just like moaning about the slow internet every single morning.
Fantastic. If you got those right, your vocabulary is officially leveling up.
Oh, absolutely. And, what stands out to you when we review all these phrases together, something I find absolutely fascinating is how incredibly physical these advanced English idioms actually are.
Physical, how do you mean?
Well, we don't just abstractly start a task, right?
Sure.
We make a dent in it, as if we are physically striking a block of metal with a hammer. We don't just succeed, we do a cracking job.
Right.
Like we are breaking right through a solid barrier.
Oh, wow. That is such a great observation. It gives the language so much texture and weight.
It really does.
Which actually leaves us with something really interesting to think about. Like, how much does using these vivid, slightly physical idioms actually change our own internal mindset?
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, if you frame a terrifying, daunting task at work as something you just need to make a dent in, does the language itself make you braver? Does it shrink the problem down to something you can actually hit?
It is a brilliant question. The words we choose don't just describe our reality, they actively shape it.
It is definitely something to mull over as you step out of this deep dive and give your new vocabulary a go out in the real world. Go hit the bullseye.